great if we could take like a few minutes for us to meditate together. I'm going to lead it so you can just relax, and then trying to generate a positive motivation. And then I'm going to have a little break when we take refuge, because I want to say some things about that, if you're fine with that. Okay, cool. And for those, in case, I think you all sit like perfectly, so I don't have to really say something. Hello. So, regardless of what is happening at the moment around us, and maybe there's still some movement and noise, that's fine. Just allow yourself for some moments to be. You don't really have to think of meditation, just allow yourself to be with what is. And then if you find some tension within your body, you can actively use the out breath to relax and release any tension. And for that, you can scan your body once from the top of your head down to the toes. And whenever you feel you're being distracted, that's totally fine. You don't have to fight it, but just simply don't pay interest. And just come back to scanning the body and releasing any kind of tension that you might find. And if you cannot relax and you find so much tension, then that's fine also. Just relax about the fact that you cannot be relaxed. And then just for 1 minute, as an act of loving kindness towards yourself, you can let go of any thoughts regarding the past, any plans or anticipations about the future. And allow yourself to come to rest into the stillness of the present moment, simply by focusing your mind, your awareness on the breath, wherever you can feel it. And whenever any kind of sounds come, you can also use that as your object of meditation. And then we can generate a motivation together. And for that, I would like to use the prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I'm going to read it out. Today I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I am going to have kind thoughts towards others. I'm not going to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. And then we can do the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and the other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and the other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chudang zoge chognam la jangju bardu dagni gyapsu chi dagi jinso ki personam ki drula penche sangye drupasho. Sorry, I didn't even tell you on which page this was. Telling you next time. Why do we take refuge in the first place? I think often we do that, and I think especially for people who might not consider themselves Buddhist, but who want to learn about Buddhism, and some people also, we have to ask ourselves, what is Buddhism? And then we can put it in all kind of categories. Some people like to put it in the category of religion, some people like to put it in the category of philosophy, some people like to put it in the category of psychology. I think it's important for us to choose that, whatever is helpful for us most. So here, when we're taking refuge, it's not a thing for you to be part of the Buddhist community. Even though we say when we take in refuge for people who want to become Buddhists or consider themselves like this, it's suggested to take refuge and do this prayer. But I think it's sometimes when we chant or when we do these things, we kind of forget the meaning. And I think especially for people who might be kind of new to also this kind of philosophy or psychology or religion, sometimes I think in our culture it can be a little bit, repulsive to have kind of rituals, right? So now I think it's very important for us to ask ourselves, what does refuge actually mean to us? And here in this prayer, on this 4 lines, it's on page 48 for those who want to have a look at it. Actually, when we say, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, what are Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly? And why do we take refuge in the first place? Actually, this in itself could be a teaching for weeks or months, because Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I mean, the Dharma itself, and maybe this is where I start. Dharma is like a word that we might not be so familiar with. Actually, there are different ways of interpreting it. But one very common way is to say it's the teachings of the Buddha. And this is the actual refuge, because just a Buddha, just a person who has attained certain realization and who has removed certain obscurations, this person itself, if it would just sit in his little room and be happy for himself, wouldn't really be of much benefit for us. So therefore he very kindly, the historical Buddha, if you're talking now about him, who lived like 500-600, it's not completely clear, years before our time that we're calculating in, he has very kindly shared certain kind of teachings that could be of benefit. But even him just talking about it will not be of much benefit if we don't actually investigate what these teachings are about and then think, oh, how would they apply to me, and how would this change my life if I would actually adopt them, if they make sense. And that is something that I again and again like to encourage us to please really question whatever is said from me, but also whatever you read, because this is one of the amazing fortunes that we're having as human beings. We have the capacity to think about things, we have the capacity to reflect and to use logic, and that's amazing. So we should make use of it. So this is at least my approach. I think it's very helpful to take advantage of this amazing quality that we're having. So the Dharma itself, we're saying this, by taking this teachings into heart and investigating if it's actually logical and makes sense. And then once we have come to an investigation and have come to a conclusion, yes, this really does make sense, I want to take this to heart, then we start moving in a direction that actually gives us refuge. But then refuge from what? And here then we come to the very first teaching that the Buddha actually gave, which is a whole chapter again in itself, is that there's I think all of us have, okay, a different question. Have you ever, and I asked it last time already, have you ever experienced problems in your life? Okay, okay, I like it to be interactive. So if you have experienced problems, please raise your hand. Okay, do you think that in the future you are completely sure and safe that you will not have problems anymore? If you think so, please raise your hand. If you don't think so, please raise your hand. Okay, so you're all kind of not secure about the fact that, well, whatever could happen, I don't know if I will experience problems in my life. Would you say that you are in control of your thoughts and that you're happy with the way that your mind is working? Completely happy with the way that your mind is working at the moment. If you don't feel like it, please raise your hands. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the question was, are you happy? Are you completely happy with the way that your mind is guiding you right now?
So if the answer is yes, I should raise my hand?
Yes, okay. And if the answer is no, then please raise your hand for the second time. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, and here now, the Buddha came along and said, well, I recognize the same, I had the same, and I really wanted to get to the heart of why are we all so unhappy. So this is, if we don't understand the fact that we have kind of unhappiness within us, we will not get to the point of achieving any kind of peace. Because I think on a very conventional level, once we know a problem, already that gives a comfort. I think for me personally, the more I don't know what's going on, even if it's something good or something bad, let's say I have an unclear situation, that is way more shaky than at least knowing what's the problem. Because once you know the problem, you at least don't have this wavering mind around, which is uncertain. So now you know, okay, I'm having a problem, and that's fine. So now I'm having a problem. Now I want to, if this is a thing that I want to overcome, where do I turn to? And here we're saying, well, we turn to somebody who is somebody who has overcome the problem. And the word Sangye is the Tibetan word for Buddha. I don't know if maybe some of you have heard it. Who of you heard this word already? Okay, perfect. Sangye, actually this is in our Tibetan refuge space. The first word, Sangye Chödang. Sangye. This word has 2 syllables. And Sangye is referring to one, the complete elimination of all obstacles, of all mental delusions, of all defilements, of all afflictions. The word affliction sometimes is, I think, strange if you're not kind of in the Buddhist bubble. Affliction here, what it means is you have kind of some mental states of mind that cause you disturbance. For example, anger is a very big one, or very strong craving. These are all kind of afflictions. Jealousy, pride, arrogance. These all are kind of afflictions. So the Buddha has what the Buddha means is not somebody who is, and I really love this. I thought about this so often, and I'm kind of happy about it. We always talk about, I think some people don't like this idea of something being supernatural, and finding this kind of strange in our culture to talk about something supernatural. And then I thought, well, being a Buddha is actually supernatural. Because he is, and I love it, because he has come to the core of our own minds, which we all have. This is the claim. We all have the mind, we all have the potential, and this is the nature of our selves that we want to come to, that we want to come in contact with. So he has come to this very natural state, which is free of all kind of defilements, free of all kind of negative emotions. That's one part of being a Buddha. It's not you're flying in the sky. That's not what the Buddha. That could be amazing, but that's not what it is about. And the second part is that of this syllable is that he has not only removed all obstacles, but by removing all obstacles, he's also attained, or she, it could be both, or somebody without any gender, has attained all kind of attainments that they are to attain, all kind of qualities that they exist within our mind, completely unfolded. So somebody like this would be an amazing person to turn to give us some help with our own state. Then the third one is, who are the people right now who are actually practicing these teachings? And these are people who are on the path, who are on the way to attaining this kind of state. So these are also incredibly important people, and I really like, I think sometimes we make it, and I really like it, often we make a big deal out of the Buddha, we make a big deal out of the Dharma, but sometimes I think there is a tendency to kind of forgetting about the Sangha, to not make a big deal about them, or the Supreme Assembly, as we say. These we can interpret them again on very different level, but you could also, sometimes we say it's the nuns and the monks who uphold the vows of the Buddha Dharma, but then we can also bring it to a very, very low level. It's all those people around us who are actually with us on the path, meaning all of you. So you're kind of taking refuge in each other as well, because who are the people that we practice with? It's the people that we are sitting with together who inspires us. So we are inspiration for one another. And these are also, eventually it's always going to come to a point where people kind of, have different ideas and different approaches. And these are actually moments where we can put into practice the teachings. So on this very, very low level, not so much like, because it's very difficult to know who is where on the path, who has realized what. We don't really know that. So on a very basic level, everybody could be, at least the people here around you. And that also helps us to kind of generate a certain kind of respect for each other here, which again then helps you in your group to find this bubble of respect for each other, this helpful atmosphere for each other, which is very important, I think, because the world, as I think we just talked about it, the world outside sometimes can be quite different and have different thoughts and different, approaches onto life. So if somebody did something bad to you, then they will say, yeah, give them a slap back. It's very difficult to go a different approach here. So then you guys are very helpful for each other to remind ourselves, oh, I'm not alone, and there are people who inspire me to do the same. So this is one part. This is the external Sangha. These are all things outside. But then the second two lines, we read, by my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of sentient beings. And even if this is a very far-fetched aim, like may I become a Buddha, if this is just too much for us because we don't really even know what it is, and we are not even interested in like Buddhism or something like this in general, which is fine. We don't need to in order to finding happiness. But then this is the internal refuge that we take, meaning this is the job that we need to do. This is where we actually say, oh, the teachings out there by themselves will not change my life. What can I do to make myself happy? What can I do to bring benefit to others? So I really like, in case you do those prayers, or in case we do them in the sessions that we do here, try to reflect a little bit on that. So it's not so much, oh, am I having a nice chanting? Am I having a nice voice? That doesn't really matter. How does it move me? So these are the two things that, like external refuge and internal refuge, which I just like to give as a little reminder for the people. What's your name, by the way?
Simone.
Simone.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So now I have everyone. Okay, great. So that was important for me. And then, then last week we've talked a little bit about what is meditation. Does anybody remember what is meditation as the how do you say, the etymology, at least the etymology? Does anyone remember meditation? What does it mean?
To become familiar with our mind.
To become familiar. So the word gom in Tibetan means familiarization, exactly. Great. And then within meditation, what are the two main types of meditations that at least Tibetan Buddhism classified all different types of meditations that exist? What are the two main types of meditation that we have? Does anybody remember? Mm-hmm.
The shamatha
Mm-hmm.
and the analytical meditation.
Mm-hmm. So we have, exactly as you said, shamatha, or shine is the Tibetan word for it, or stabilizing or calm abiding is actually the translation, I think. But there are different ways, and I'm not good with Tibetan, so I cannot say. But we have stabilizing meditation. Oh, admit. Hello, Romana. So we're welcoming also Romana. Nice to meet you. So we have stabilizing meditation and analytical meditations. And we've looked a little bit into stabilizing meditation. And then I asked you also last time, why are you here? Why do you want to learn meditation in the first place? And what did I think you were the one who said something about that?
Become enlightened.
To become enlightened, exactly. This was the very great motivation. But why do you want to become enlightened?
Because I think that's the best alternative to anything else.
Why do you want to have a best alternative?
Because everything else is not satisfying.
Not satisfying. So you want to be what?
I want to be Buddha.
No. You want, if it's not satisfying, what do you want then?
Happy.
We want to be happy. So whenever we want something, actually we can come back and ask our questions. Why do I want that? Why do I want that? Why don't I want that? And we come back, and the very core of it is, I want to be happy. I just want to be happy, and I don't want to suffer. And these are very, very important two main wishes that we are allowed to recognize. These become a foundation for many, many amazing practices that we can do. But then, where does this happiness and suffering exist? Where does it exist? I asked the same question as last time.
In our mind.
In our minds. You! Great. So, when it exists within our mind, it does not exist in the material world. And we've tried everything in the material world if you're looking at human history. And most probably there's going to be way other stuff which is coming up, which is trying to give us the sense of pleasure and happiness. So, it's kind of interesting. I thought about it. I think whenever we had a problem, or often we have problems externally in the material world, for example, we had a mathematical problem, then you just need to find a formula to get the solution. Somehow in all human history, and also above humans, we always had one problem which we somehow didn't find a formula that, which was we have the problem of not being happy, although we want to be happy. And we have the problem of having suffering, even though now I'm switching to German, even though we don't want to have suffering. So that's kind of strange, isn't it? I find it's kind of strange, because how can it be that we are so intelligent and we have so amazing things and we can make, I don't know, a new iPhone each and every year, but we kind of don't manage to come even steps closer to finding a formula for our own very basic need that we have of having satisfaction within us, having happiness within us. So, and here I really would like to quote one line by Shantideva, who was a great Indian master, and he wrote a book which is called Bodhisattva Charyavatara, or the Bodhisattva's way of life, or the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. And here I really like us to turn our minds towards what we actually have control over. Because if you, and I mean most of you maybe know this quote, but I would actually like to first ask the question, imagine you're in a very old place, and like many centuries before now, and you don't even yet wear shoes, but every day you have to run from one place to another, and the road is really hard, and you have like a little bit of leather, and then you start patching up because you have so much pain on your feet that you actually start bleeding. So you start patching up the pieces of the road. At some point you can maybe get a meter or two further away, and at some point you're like, I'm never going to reach to the other place where I need to go with these little pieces of leather, and maybe sometimes I have to go to a different place, and then in order for me to walk softly without all this pain, I want to have it soft. So then I know it's more like a rhetorical question, but what would be the best thing to do? Instead of, we have, let's say, a limited amount of leather or of any kind of soft, but saving, hard but soft, does it make sense? Like one which is protective, that's a good word. A protective kind of fabric that is kind of soft on your inside of your soles on the foot. Well, if you have just like a limited amount, but you have like a whole world that you want to go to, what would be the most clever thing to do with the little piece of leather? I know it's a rhetorical question, so just throw it in so that we can move on. Huh? Put them on your feet. So yeah, but this is it sounds so ridiculous because it sounds so simple, but do we do that in our daily lives? We don't. We cannot continue to fix. We want to fix things outside. So it's kind of funny that it makes so much sense when we think intellectually about it, but once we're faced with things, we kind of do it the opposite than we actually logically understand. So the quote by Shantideva is, and this is translated by Tozigi. It's the 5th chapter, in case anyone has it, on guarding introspection. Where could I possibly find enough leather with which to cover the surface of the earth? Having leather on just the soles of my shoes is equivalent to covering the earth with it. So here we also say, well, there is a lot in the materialistic world, but what do I actually have influence in and control over, and what is the most reasonable thing to do? It is to actually work on our own minds. Does it mean we have to become like how do you call this mat that is lying in front of the door? A doormat. A doormat, thank you. Oh, that was simple. It doesn't mean that you have to be like a doormat and don't do anything and don't change things. You can, but also in the external. But wouldn't it be wonderful if you do it without being needy for the world to give you something? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we do it because we ourselves are fine with what is and we want to give something to the world? That's a completely different approach of wanting to do something for the world, wanting to change things in the world. That's a completely different kind of approach. So and last week I gave you like a little challenge I gave you the challenge to try to meditate every day 5 minutes. And be honest, there's nothing that you can do wrong, all right? Did you manage all to do 5 days, 5 minutes every day? If somebody did, please raise your hand.
Once a day or more?
Once a day. Okay. Who didn't? It's a good thing. I'm telling you why it's a good thing. Okay, great. That means that you didn't do it because you in general don't want it. You didn't do it because you're an evil person. You didn't do it because you're lazy and in general you have like a bad nature. It's not like that at all. The reason why we do it because we're not in control of our mind. And that's the first realization that we want to get at. So the fact that you didn't manage to is not a fact that you failed. It's an opportunity for you to recognize how uncontrolled we are of our minds. Because we tell ourselves, I want to do this, but we just don't manage. And that's kind of that's the hard fact of where we are at the moment. And then looking at that, we again can look at ourselves like a child, thinking, oh dear, I really want something, but somehow I don't manage. How sad. And then we can generate compassion and all these other very good things. Oh wait, there's another person trying to get in. Oh, sorry. But we want to we want to include them, right? So that they're not.
Zoom security.
Huh?
New Zoom security.
New Zoom security. Okay.
How many people are?
Oh, just two. Just two. Right. So we have a mind that is not in control, and I really like to think about it. But then at the same time, when you go for an ice cream, who's telling you I want an ice cream right now? You said the word already, so you can say it again. The mind. Right. So the mind is the boss. The mind is telling us what to do, what not to do. The mind is leading us. So that if the mind is the boss, that would be great, but the boss is a little bit crazy. The boss is not really in control. So then what happens if in a country the boss is a little bit crazy? The whole company is going to be a little bit crazy. And even more dramatic or tragic, what is if in a country the president is a little bit crazy? The whole country is going to be a little bit crazy. So similar us, if our mind is not really in control and is a little bit crazy, we're going to behave a little bit crazy. So how do we want to, so what we want to do with stabilizing meditation in the beginning is we want to befriend the mind, to calm the mind, to make it more pliable, to make it work, to make it soft and nice. But to do that, we cannot do it by force. We cannot, it's like and as I said last time, it's like a monkey. And if we tell the monkey, you should do this and that, it's going to scream and run away and do the opposite. So if we try to force the monkey to do something that it doesn't want to do, it just doesn't work. So, or if we tell the monkeys to not do something, as we did last time in experiment, if we say, you shouldn't, it doesn't work. It will even multiply it. So therefore, we should not try to do it by force, but through a game, in a joyful, playful way. So this is the approach that we want to work here together. It's a playful, joyful thing, even though things might be difficult, but we can have this soft approach to our own minds. And then slowly, that's the good thing, slowly, we're going to start seeing the goodness of the mind. We're going to start seeing more positive qualities that exist in our minds already. So when we talked about meditation, one very important thing that I think for us to recognize is that, as we said last time, sometimes we judge our meditation experience based on how it felt. But actually we say the essence of meditation is that you're having awareness. And having awareness, does anybody remember the two main features that mind has, that awareness has? Does anybody remember? If not, no problem. We made a Dahl experiment with it.
Clarity and the ability to know.
Exactly. clarity and knowing. And clarity meant that things appear to the mind. It doesn't mean that the mind has to be like we feel it's completely clear all the time, but the fact that things can appear in our minds means that there's a certain kind of clarity that allows things to appear in it. And the second thing is knowing. So the mind has knowing. Then the funny thing is we say we always have mind, so we always have knowing. So then I want to ask you, do you believe that you always know? Example, do you know what's a midge? Who knows what's a midge? Anybody who knows what's a midge? Raise their hand. Okay. Anybody who does not know what's a midge, raise their hand. Okay. Anybody who's not... okay, everybody raised their hand, so I don't have to ask another question. All answers, you not knowing it is a perfect answer. Because when I ask you, don't you know it? You all raise, when I ask you, do you not know it? You all raised your hands, which means you know that you don't know. So therefore, you have knowing. You know what you know, you don't know what you not, you don't, you know what you know, and you know what you don't know. And you know if you're not really sure. So this is a feature of the mind that you always have. And that is what we say is the essence of the meditation. Meaning, it doesn't matter what's happening in the meditation, what's the experience of, if it's comfortable or uncomfortable. If you know it's fine. Then, if this is the fact, then I would like to ask you, what then is the difference if we have always awareness, even when we're just sitting here and we're not meditating? We always have awareness, and awareness is always knowing. And we say the essence of meditation is awareness. What then is the difference between meditation and just not meditation? You can discuss a little bit if you like. What do you think? Any suggestions?
Usually you have a disturbed mind, and in meditation you don't.
Well, sadly, I still have a very disturbed mind when I meditate.
The goal would be not to have it.
well, there is a point to it. One aspect is that. Do you remember last time when we meditated on I think sound and breath? What was the difference between breathing and meditating on breath? Or what's the difference between listening to sound and meditating on sound? Do you remember what was the difference here?
We are aware, and we are now.
We are recognizing it. We are aware of it. Exactly. So same with our minds, with any kind of meditation that we do. What did you want to say?
There's basically you create the observer.
Uh-huh.
So there's an object and a subject.
Uh-huh.
Whereas when we're like this, we're both
well,
at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't realize the
That's the point. We don't realize it. But actually, also when we are in our day-to-day life, the way that I studied, the way that I understood it, in how the mind functions, it always has an object. Even though we could say we have no object, but then the mind itself is the object.
No, absolutely, but there's no subject. There's no. I mean, in the day-to-day,
you don't recognize it.
You don't
recognize
it.
it.
You're not aware
Yeah,
of the subject.
we're not aware of it. Exactly.
That's what I meant,
Yeah, exactly. So here with meditation, it's exactly about that. Do you recognize it or not? So again, regardless of how comfortable the meditation or uncomfortable or how far away you are, if you have still the stream of recognition, you're still meditating. And that's important for us to recognize. Otherwise, we think I cannot meditate. Because my mind is most probably, when you start meditating, the mind is going to be 90% all over the place. And that is the job of the mind. We cannot expect the mind right now to be calm, and we want to sit there and meditate and it's going to be nice. That's the job of the mind, to go up and down. It has been doing it since in Buddhist terminology, since beginningless time. If this is a little bit too much, at least since this life, it has been going up and down in all kind of different directions. And then when we start recognizing the mind, we try to, through those meditations, we use whatever object as a support. Then we have the mind knowing it, and we have the recognition of this mind. And through that, we get to know more and more the mind. And with that, we also get to know more and more beautiful qualities that exist within the mind. And then, since we don't have too much, time anymore, and I still would like to do a meditation, one thing that is also very important for me is those 5 minutes. If this was too much, do 2 or do 1. It doesn't really matter how long the time is. It is about, we try to do very, very small things repeatedly, very often. And one very nice reminding phrase that, for example, Mingyur Rinpoche uses is short time, many time, short time, many time, short time, many time. I really like that, because you don't have to do it, you don't have to think, oh, meditation means I have to sit now for, I don't know, half an hour, sit straight, whatever. Not necessary. We do, especially in the beginning, very short time, and then the quality of it is going to be way better. And even if the quality is going all over the place, as long as you recognize, that's also fine. And I really like also, do you know, like the original example is that also small drops, one drop after one drop is going to fill up the glass or the bottle or whatever. Do you know, you have like those bottles which have like quite a thin upper part. When I used to live in Italy, the water was kind of very hard. It had a lot of calcium. So sometimes there was a water filtering machine, and there was a very strong stream coming out of it. So each and every time when I would put, me and my friend often would go together and then did kind of a funny thing trying to exchange the bottles, because it was just too much of a stream. And often when the stream was so strong, the bottle wouldn't fill up all up until the top. Do you know this? When you try to fill up a bottle, you always, because it's going to flow all over outside of it. So in the end, you have to do very small drops, very, very soft stream for it to fill up. So similarly, I think with us, if we just try to jump into doing something, it's going to flow all over and we're going to be a mess. And we're going to be disappointed because we lost so much water. In this case, we lost so much time with not really much benefit. So instead, just do very, very short moments and trust in the fact that it's going to have an effect. And as I said, who of you, for example, tried at least every now and then to do those informal sessions where you just had a second or 2 seconds or 30 seconds during the day? Did you every now and then manage to do that in your last week? Yeah? That's amazing. And I said, please calculate them. Please be happy about them. These are very, very good things. So now, and one thing that also I really, really like, and maybe that's, I already talked about that, but when we do exercise, physical exercise, and I think this is something that we all maybe also have already heard, we also start slow. We don't suddenly start with like a full on, I don't know how much you do this. I've never done it, like 20, 10, 5? 100. But you don't start like with a huge weight. You start very little and you only go for the gym. Yes.
Yeah, my problem is not if it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes. It's I just don't do it. You know,
Yeah. This is why we need to have this is why I think, sorry, did you finish what you wanted to say?
Well, you know, I would like to have a WhatsApp or something 3 times a day telling me now it's time to meditate. Maybe it would help.
Actually, these things exist. They are apps, and they are. But the thing is, after some time, if you use the app for 2 weeks, it's not going to work anymore.
Okay.
Therefore, we need to keep our meditation fresh, which means we need to first, and I think being here, it's very difficult if you have never had, let's say, I was very fortunate when I first encountered meditation. It was in a frame of like a retreat and then like an introduction course. Then it's very easy to have like little tastes, and those tastes inspire you to continue. Inspire you to say, oh, I see the benefit of it. If we haven't had this stability or those little glimpses or these little tastes, then it's very difficult to feel inspired. So then you for yourself have to find a method that you yourself feel inspired to. And often what really helps is to have a routine. If you're like a nurse, it's super difficult because you have always a different routine. Whereas when you have quite a stable day and looks quite different, it's really helpful to find one spot at the day where you know there's nothing else than that. And even if you don't do it, don't do anything else in this time, you know. But that's very difficult. What helps is to, in the beginning, use kind of apps. There are some really, really good ones. There's, I think, Mindbell, Insight Timer, and all
I
these
didn't
kind of.
mean that. I meant that, you know, for example, as a group, we could tell each other, now I'm doing it. So
Yes,
maybe
yes,
the others would be
yes.
motivated to do it
That's
as
a
well.
really beautiful idea. I mean, these kind of things exist already in a grade frame, for example, through Insight Timer. I think this is one where you can see how many people are meditating right now. But it's true, there's a difference, especially since you know each other. You yourself can actually make something like this up. I mean, if you're all into that and down for that, please do whatever. And this is what I really, really like about one thing that I said last time as well. As long as I can sit and Pucci says, whatever helps us in the beginning, we should use it. Whatever. So therefore, yeah, go for it. Do like a WhatsApp group. Do like a email. Whatever helps you people to inspire each other. Definitely. But also we're going to talk about how to set up a meditation routine and how to set up the inspiration to do it. So it's difficult. That's, I think, also for me, it's the most difficult thing.
I'm always happy when I've done it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that
I
would
know.
be enough
I know.
inspiration.
Sadly, it's not. Sadly, it's not. Yeah, it's so difficult. I have the same thing. For me, it's also, I'm always happy when I sit down. I'm always happy when I finish. And somehow, I think it's not the lack of motivation necessarily, or the knowing of the benefit of it. I think sometimes it's just that we don't recognize when we do something else and we are so into that sometimes we don't have the gap to actually get connected to. That's the recognition, right? You have the knowledge about the fact that it's great, but you don't recognize it. So therefore, since you don't have the recognition of there's so much benefit, we don't sit down. But slowly. Yeah, would you like to meditate a little bit? Then we can do another meditation on the breath, or are there before any kind of questions?
Well, maybe just a comment to that.
Yes.
What helps for me, with any kind of new habit I want to do, is if I actually write it down on a piece of paper, and then a chart of the whole week, and I tick it off. And I put this paper maybe next to the bed or on the desk or something, and then I'm kind of always happy when I can do it.
Oh, it's true.
And depending on which habit or whatever, sometimes I say, okay, I can have a joker once or twice a week, or just say, not to pressure myself, because I don't want to have a strong pressure, but to have a reminder and I'm sort of done.
I'm also very, how do you say, I also write a lot. For me, I also did the same, and I still sometimes do. Yeah, we can actually later on, we can definitely also in the breaks and also in our, especially later on, it's super helpful if we share these things that help one, because we are inspiring each other. Same as I'm super inspired by you guys, you can inspire each other. So definitely talk about that. Did you meditate before?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't have a problem with sitting, and you know that.
I mean, a certain amount of times.
Okay. Do you have problems with your back?
No, it's just I guess nervous sitting down for too long.
Okay, there's no problem. If you want, if you're sitting on a chair, what is helpful if you try to not lean too much back. If you're not having problems with and you can keep your feet down on the ground, that's also absolutely no problem. Just try to not lean too much back. Otherwise, this becomes a habit. And then also, they say it's very, very good if the spine is straight. And if we have the cushion behind us, we tend to at some point do like this, and it becomes cozy and nice. But we want to be upright. So rather, maybe it's helpful to put actually the pillow just on the edge of your bottom. Okie dokie. Yeah. So find yourself a nice and comfortable seat or position. And then just for some time, without even thinking about meditation, you can just relax. Just allow yourself to be. And then again, you can scan your body and use the out breath to relax any tension that you find within your body. And especially at the area of the face, see if you find any tension in your jaw. Just relax. Also relax all the muscles around the eyes. Allow your face to be that of a sleeping baby, completely relaxed. And while you scan down your body, if you recognize that you just cannot relax and that you're super tight, then that's also fine. Just relax about the fact that you might be tensed. In doing that, you already relax a little bit more. And then we can put our awareness to the breath. This time we can focus our awareness on the knowing of the breath in the nostrils, the doors of the nose, the area around the nose where you can feel the breath. And if you cannot detect any kind of sensations, you can also move to the abdomen. But if you can feel sensations, then just place your mind on the knowing of the breath at the area of the nostrils. Whenever your mind wanders, then that's completely fine. Then you can just relax about it and then release any kind of thoughts or distractions. And with an easygoing, simple, and kind-hearted attitude, you can just return to the recognition of the knowing of the breath around the nostrils. And even if there are thoughts, you don't have to push them away, as long as you still have the recognition of the breath. Just let them do their business, and you just put your focus on the breath. Just one more minute. And then you can let go of the focus of the breath. Just for some time again, rest. Just as it is. You don't even have to meditate. Okie dokie. How was it? Lots of dullness, sleepiness, or thoughts? Or are you already asleep?
I realized when I close my eyes,
Uh-huh.
I really kind of
Focus better.
no, in the opposite
Oh,
way.
yeah.
It's a bit more.
Yeah, that's
Or kind of getting tired.
Yes.
And if I open my eyes, it's much better.
Amazing. That is how it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. These are exactly Huh? Did you have your hand up? Ah, okay. Yeah, I mean that's exactly this is I think I don't know if I actually talked about it last time. This is exactly the three different types of how we can open and close our eyes. It is suggested for some people in the beginning it's very helpful to have the eyes closed because if they are super distracted by forms, and especially when you're in places where lots of things move, or when you have a person in front of you, sometimes it can be distracting. But it is generally really advised to have light coming through your eyes and to have them a little bit open. So that's good. Well done. And anyone else? Does anyone else want to share a little bit how it is for you to sit and try?
Similar to Chantal. Sometimes I have that also, like when the eyes are closed and it's like you have stories, all these like things going on, and then if you open the eyes, like you like, oh, the stories are here around. It's just this room,
Yeah.
and it helps like really anchor.
Yeah.
It.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's good. Please experiment with it. And it's amazing. Maybe I should also say it for the people who are online or watching it later on YouTube. hello. It's for people who wear glasses. I think you already did it automatically, and I don't know if you did. Some people really say it's really helpful for them to remove their glasses. For some people that can be very, very helpful. So experiment with it. Meditation is extremely personal process. There is no fixed rule. There are very good guidelines, but it's an extremely personal process. And one thing that I wanted to say also is I think usually we have two kind of experiences. Either we have lots of distraction or we have lots of dullness. And dullness can be a little bit dangerous, because sometimes dullness feels like we are super on the object, but actually we're like, you know. So this is how it can feel, but then it's really good to switch on the light, open the eyes, or make a break. But we're going to talk also about 4 different steps that we can use, which are really helpful for whatever kind of experience we're going through. Yeah, let me see if I have something here. Yeah, that's it. I think then we can have a break, since it's already 5 past. Do you want to meet at 15:15, or do you want 10 or 15 minutes break? 10 minutes? All fine with that? Because if somebody says I definitely need more, then we can also respect that. Okay. Then if not, then we meet at 15:15. Enjoy yourself. Upstairs we have nice chocolate and strawberries and apple and nuts, so there's a whole feast up there. Great. Okay. And for those people online here, we're gonna see each other also in 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Whatever time you are in. So the first session now, we've talked mainly about stabilizing meditation. And I think what often happens in our meditation experiences and also in our day-to-day lives is that we have things coming up, like thoughts, like emotions, or like dullness and sleepiness or excitement. These are very, very normal experiences. And some people also have like the experience of no experience at all, and they think, I don't even have excitement, I don't even have dullness, am I doing something wrong? You can't really do much wrong. so all these experiences are great, but then when we have also in our day-to-day lives, what are the, like, for you, what are typical, or let's ask it differently. Oh yeah, thank you for closing it. Maybe it's maybe wait a second. Thank you. Oh. Thank you very much. When we have, let's say, a thought coming up in our mind that we don't want, usually, can you relate to that when I say usually there are like 2 main things that we do, trying to either push it away, like I don't want that, like I want to fight it, or go away. We have those things, I don't like, go away, you're my enemy, I don't want you, and I try to just push you away. That's one way. The other way that we have is we just follow it. I, sir, yes, okay, yes, sir, what can I offer you? Yes, you want this. So we do these kind of things. I want to be angry. Okay, I'm angry now. I want to hit this person. Okay, we go for it. Maybe these are extremes, but let's go for little, very little things. We do that. Our mind tells us to do something, and we follow it, of course. Or we say, I don't want that. It doesn't feel nice. Go away. Can you relate to that? Okay, me too. So we either are like slaves of our uncontrolled mind, or we try to push it away and they become like enemies. Oh, those 2 options, do they sound like something that is good to do, something that is helpful for us? I personally always felt, or often felt, before I met those techniques, that these are, even though they don't feel nice, these are the 2 only things that I have. These are the 2 only things that I can do. Now, what we want to suggest here with meditation is that there's a way to learn and to deal with those different thoughts and emotions without having to either push them away and fight them. Because if we do that, usually what happens, it multiplies, it becomes bigger. Or if we suppress, what then happens is that often either at a later point in time it just bursts out, which I think we also all can relate to and have had situations like that, where we think, oh, I'm so kind, no, I don't have a problem. Of course, you can do that. And at some point, why are you? You know, if something very little, why did you drink out of my cup? And we freak out. But it was not about the cup. It was about the fact that we've been, storing it up the whole time without really working with it, or we follow it and we don't really have control at all, and we're just like slaves. So what we here try to suggest through meditation is befriending our mind, becoming friends with those situations, becoming friends with those thoughts, and learning how to use them as support for our meditation. So instead of having to fight them, having to run after them, we suddenly have a third option. They become a friend, a support of our meditation. And they are either through shamatha, meaning stabilizing meditations. We can use any kind of object. And this is actually a question that I want to take with you for your week. Is there any kind of object that you can think of that you cannot meditate with? Think about that. Then the second way that we can start learning with it, or start making it a friend, whatever happens, let's say thoughts, let's say disturbing emotions, let's say any kind of agitation that we have. The second thing that we can always do, which we cannot yet because we haven't got the tools yet, transform it into loving kindness and compassion. That's one way. Or wisdom, which is a whole different chapter in itself. So we can, whenever we have something, there are three main things that we can do. We can either use it as a support for meditation in our shamatha practice. We can use it as a support in our meditation of loving compassion. We can use it as a support of meditation in our wisdom kind of practices. And this we try step by step here to do at least some little tools. So then it becomes very nice, because then problems become suddenly friends. They become supporters, they become helpers for us to develop. And this, again, when we talk about refuge, and we talked in the very beginning about that, where do we want to be? We want to be more in control of our minds. So if this is our aim, if our aim is to be more in control of our own minds, thereby becoming more happy, thereby even being able to benefit others, then if this is our aim, we want to work with our minds. So then whatever helps us to work with our minds is going to be our friend. So therefore, if a difficult situation comes up, if a negative thought comes up, and we can utilize this to actually come to the point that we generate, either more shamatha, meaning more stability of mind, or more loving compassion, or more wisdom, these become our friends. So then we label them differently. And that already makes a huge difference. But we cannot do this in the beginning. In the beginning, most often, we first have to have even the space, the gap, to be able to call it differently, to be able to label it differently. But this needs some time. So we use stabilizing meditation in the beginning to create those gaps, to make our mind more pliable, more workable. And then when our mind is more workable, what kind of work do we give it? That then has to do with the analytical meditation. So we want to give it, obviously, a beneficial work, a job that's going to lead it in a direction of actually finding this happiness that we so seek, and that everybody else also so seeks. So what did I write down here? Is there anything that I forgot? No. So when I was asking you about if you want to be happy, if you're not, or why you are here, you all said, oh, I want to be happy, I don't want to suffer. So in order to understand why these two heart desires, or heartfelt wishes, which I like to call them, are so important, we have to understand what's the definition, or what's the ideas of love and compassion, or loving kindness in compassion. I think if I would ask you now, what's love? Everybody has their own interpretation. If you didn't encounter Buddhism before and heard the definition before, I would actually like just for me to have some ideas. What are common ideas of what is love? What do you think, some people, what is love? Or what did the people who have already heard a definition of that, what did you think before you heard it? What was love? Do you still remember? No.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but that's great. Isn't it amazing how much you already changed? That's amazing.
I think I never knew what it is, and I think I will find it somewhere outside there.
And for you? For you?
In general.
Yeah, what is love?
Romantic love or?
Well, what is love for you? Yeah, maybe. That's the first thing that comes up. For example, romantic love, right? When we think about love, what comes quickly is romantic love. The person I love and I want to spend my life with. That could be love. Or what also comes up is like, I love ice cream. That's also how we use it. I love ice. I love pizza. So these are common words that we use. But here we use something very specific. When we talk about love and compassion, and therefore often in order to make it a little bit more distinct, a term that is often used is loving kindness, or even sometimes just kindness. So in case you read sometimes things in Buddhism and we talk about love, kindness, loving kindness, it all refers to the same, and it usually does not have to exclude romantic love. Romantic love can have love. But often I think it's really, really difficult to have romantic love completely separated from something that is not love, which we can talk about it at a certain point. But so these two heartfelt wishes that we have at each and every moment, we actually say we have it 24 hours a day, and it's very difficult to recognize. We do an exercise later to do recognize that. But we have this wish, I want to be happy. We have this wish, I don't want to suffer. So now, in the Buddhist definition of love or loving kindness, here is somebody, that could be me, you, anybody else, that could be everybody, having this as our object of observation, and then wishing this person to have happiness and the causes of happiness. That is the definition. That's quite simple, but it's deeply profound. And I tell you in a second why it is so profound. So again, love, from the Buddhist point of view, is actually even breaking it even more down. Usually when we're, for example, in a romantic relationship, often we have, I want you to make me happy. And this is this is not coming from me. So I really like it. I think the first time I heard it was from a Venerable Namgyel or from Glenn Svensson, one of them. I want you to make me happy. So it's always coming back to me. Here we're saying, I want you to be happy. That's it. I want you to have happiness and the causes of happiness. That is also when we do the 4 immeasurables, which we didn't do this morning because we did the prayer or motivation of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. We have this, may you be happy, may you have happiness and the causes of happiness. This is love. And then the second thing, compassion, where we say, I don't want to suffer, this comes back to compassion. Compassion is kind of the opposite of it. Again, observing a person, regardless if it's you, another person, everybody, and looking at them and wishing, may you be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. That's it. And in German, we have a nice distinction for those who know German. Kind of, okay, good. In German, we have the distinction between Mitgefühl und Mitleid, which I really like, because even though Mitleid would also kind of be fine, but for me, it's kind of the difference between, in the English words, compassion and pity. Meaning you look down at somebody and think, oh, poor them, but you're not actually, how do you say, having a compassionate mind, because it's coming from an above level. Oh, poor them down there. Whereas we are on the same level, and we see them, and and same with ourselves. We see the suffering, we acknowledge the suffering, and we allow it to be, but wish it to be different. We wish them to be free from suffering. And then why in all religious traditions and philosophical traditions, I think often it's coming back. I think one thing that we all have in common is the practice of love and compassion in all kind of different traditions, which is beautiful. But why is it like this? I was always curious, like it's kind of funny that in every tradition it is like this. And I think for that, at least the Buddhist philosophy has a really nice explanation for that. I don't know if has anybody heard already of the Four Noble Truths? Who did? Who didn't? That's fine also if you didn't. Okay, if you did, just think about the fact, and I won't go because this is really the fundamental teaching of Buddhism. It's a teaching that is the foundation of all Buddhist traditions. So that is really shared with all Buddhist traditions, and these are very nicely linked to loving compassion, because when we have, as I said in the beginning, we recognize that there is suffering, which is the first noble truth, to acknowledge or to know that there's suffering. That comes back to compassion. So, but I first quickly go through the four, just as a little reminder and as a thing to think about, maybe for yourself, if you have had a presentation of the Four Noble Truths. So, the first thing that we should do is to know suffering. Then the second truth is overcome. I think His Holiness uses the word overcome more than like eliminate or fight. So overcome the causes of suffering or the origin of suffering. And what is the origin? It's the causes. So when we again remember the prayer, may you be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And then the third line is to achieve cessation, which basically means the cessation. Well, that's a whole teaching in itself, but we can break it down on a very gross level. Cessation of suffering. So freedom from suffering. And what is freedom from suffering? Happiness. It is the relief of having freedom from suffering, which is happiness, which everybody deserves and which everybody seeks so desperately to have. And then the fourth one is to cultivate that which leads us to the cessation, which we call a path. And path doesn't mean you walk somewhere. It actually means a mind's for example, using certain kind of meditations to cultivate a mind that leads to that cessation of suffering. And here they are really beautifully aligned, because the last two of the Noble Truths are actually a good reminder of love or loving kindness. And the first Noble Truth are a very good reminder of compassion. Similarly, on the other hand, when we try to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, which we are going to try to do over the next few weeks, for those who did receive a teaching on the Four Noble Truths, if you don't worry about it. Really, it's all gonna come. And by you actually do cultivate, by you cultivating loving kindness and compassion, you already come closer to the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. So when we cultivate loving kindness and compassion, also that can be a reminder of what's the bigger picture behind. It's the Four Noble Truths, which is actually the way in which we can free ourselves from delusions, in which we can free ourselves from suffering. Because if we just cultivate compassion but not really understanding how can we actually be free from suffering, and can we actually achieve a state of happiness? So these answers we find within the teachings of the Four Noble Truths. So the more we generate this loving kindness and compassion, the more curious we're going to become on how can we actually find those happiness, and how can we actually remove suffering. So they are beautifully together. And then one thing that is also for me important, because again I think we need to use our logic, because this is the safest way to go, because there's so many different opinions and so many different teachings right now available. We need to use, or I think it's very helpful to use the logic that we have. So then why, I think one question that I also would like to give to you for the week to reflect is when we say my understanding of any kind of teaching that we receive from the Buddha is everything that is coming closer or helping us to come closer to the understanding of how things exist is leading us closer to happiness. Anything that is drawing away from realizing how things actually exist is bringing us further away from happiness and increases the suffering that we have. So if that is the case, how then, if loving kindness and compassion are being taught, how then do they actually, why are they more in line with reality than having the opposite, having hatred and having how do you say other negative emotions? Why are they more in line with reality? Why would loving kindness and compassion be more in line with reality than other emotions that we have? That's something that we can think about and then discuss maybe next week. So because I want to give you the space to actually think about these things.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think you touched on it, but actually I love to hear it again. Again, I'm always struggling with why this differentiation between love and compassion.
They're not completely separate, but they have different aspects. In the same way that, that's too far. No, I'm not going to use those words. In the same way as you could say, I'm just saying it for one note in case you have studied, in the same way that we sometimes say, emptiness and dependent arising, they're different things, but they are not separate. So similarly, obviously we can say the removal of suffering is gonna lead to happiness, and happiness is the removal of suffering.
Exactly.
Still, it has a different thought behind it. For example, when you have you ever experienced like some kind of really, really great feeling? I hope that you at sometimes then we have this feeling, oh, I really want to share that. I really want that they also feel that. That is not necessary. That is coming from love.
Okay.
Whereas when you look at somebody and they are really going through a lot of struggle at the moment, you're going to be, oh, I really want them to be free from that suffering. So that has even though they're not separated in theory, and here there comes a very important point. Actually, you're touching on a very important point. Here, we must make a difference between what we understand theoretically and what is actually happening practically within our own minds. So the difference between that you're only going to find when you start practicing it. When you start practicing, you recognize that they have a different touch. And that is, obviously, theoretically, they are completely entangled. But the way that we practice them has a different approach. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or is there anything else that you want to
No, I think
okay.
that helps
Okay.
actually. I think very much.
Yeah. So where was I? So please take this question with you. So do you know what's the question? Or was I clear enough with the question? Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
Yes. Thank you for asking. So the question is, if my understanding is, the teachings that the Buddha is offering us is everything that is leading us closer to understanding reality, to understanding how things exist. Anything that is more in line with reality or leading us in that direction is going to bring us happiness. And anything that is going away from that is going to give us more struggle and suffering. Why then, or in which way then, is loving kindness and compassion more in line with reality than having, for example, hatred, a grudge, anger, jealousy, and these kind of things towards others? So why do you think, is it more in line with what is more realistic about loving kindness and compassion than about anger, hatred, aversion, or strong craving and attachment? Does it make more sense? Okay. So then we now want to try to use, first we have a stabilizing meditation, trying to make our mind more pliable. And within that, as I said earlier, we then recognize slowly, we have actually those two wishes of wanting to be happy and wanting to be free from suffering all the time, 24 hours. That actually means that on a very, very little amount, even though we don't recognize it, we always have loving compassion. Isn't that beautiful? I find it extremely beautiful. We actually have always, to a very small amount, sometimes to a very big amount maybe also, we always have already love and compassion. So we don't have to create something new. And that is really, really good news. We don't have to, out of the blue, somewhere from somewhere, have to create love, have to create compassion. We already have those seeds right now there.
Because we want it, you said?
Because the mere fact that we want to be happy is already, even though it's mixed with lots of other things, the mere fact that you want to be happy shows you have love for yourself. You want, because what was the definition of love? Wanting somebody to be happy.
Right.
And even though the way, regardless of the way that you want to achieve it, even though it's then, you have this wish, and then based on that, you're going to create craving, I need this ice cream, I need this coffee. This is not love anymore. But where it's coming from is from the seed of love. Even though it's not really wisely trained yet, and it's more like a kid doing a lot of things that is actually the opposite, which is extremely sad. And there's a beautiful quote by Shantideva also about it. I don't have it by heart, but although they run toward, although they wish for nothing but happiness, they run towards suffering. Although they wish to be free from suffering, they run into it. Something like that.
Right.
So yes, we even when you have anger, we can even go so far. Anger itself is not compassion, but even if you have anger, somewhere very, very below there is the wish to be free from suffering. Otherwise, you wouldn't have anger. So that compassionate mind is there, even though it's super small. Yeah. And that's really good news, because then we can use, actually eventually, right now most probably not, but eventually we can even use, when those emotions like anger come up, we can even use them to think through it all the way through compassion. And then we having compassion instead of anger, without having to fight anger, without having to remove anger, because anger itself suddenly becomes a reminder, I have compassion. Why not for all? Yeah. So, and also the mere fact that we have those two wishes also show us where we belong. Actually, we do belong to being happy. As I said earlier, our most supernatural state is being happy. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this longing all the time. And seeking happiness, seeking to be free from suffering, it's a little bit like being homesick. We actually just want to reach home. And then again, if we see ourselves in this kind of sense, we can be very gentle with ourselves. We can be like, I think it's really helpful to see ourselves sometimes like kids who just are homesick and want to be home. So when we recognize you have this strong seeking for happiness, you only maybe know, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, but then we can start recognizing that actually this means there is a seed of love there right now. But right now we don't see it like this. Right now we just don't recognize. Why not? Because we have never recognized it before, or we have really little recognized it before. So now what we need to do in the beginning, or what's very helpful to do in the beginning, is to start recognizing because these two wishes are part of our own very basic goodness. We have a basic goodness of loving kindness and compassion attitude. And that is something that we should value, and I think we don't. And it's very easy. I think when I ask you, I think I ask you as a challenge to do 2, not 3, not 1, but 2 things every day, to recognize things that you are grateful for. Did any one of you manage sometimes? Yeah? Maybe not every time. You didn't manage once?
I did once.
Oh, wonderful. Once is great. Once is great. It's kind of funny but do you remember all bad things that happened during the week? Is there anything that you remember that didn't work well, or where you got upset, or where you were not happy? Can you communicate? Yes, no? Okay, who did? Who did? That's also good. I think you are already super trained. I think for me personally, I was in states definitely where I could see way more bad than good. And our monkey likes, even though there is no real external problem, likes to make problems. So, you know, if there's none, it might be our nose. Oh, my nose is ugly. It's not so beautiful. It's not straight. Or, oh, I'm getting gray hair. It's not really a problem of mine at the moment because I think I'm the youngest in this room. But still, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. So we create all these kind of troubles that our mind can, you know, get a little bit of it, you know, these kind of things. So I think we all have these things. So it's very easy for us to see negative things, and it's very, I think also our media is around that. It's very much focused on the news, and I think Özil, he said once, I don't know if it was him, I think it is from him, he said it's kind of funny that what we see in the media is a woman shot her, and this actually happened in Germany now, a woman shot her or killed her 5 kids. It's horrible, and this came in the media all the time, but this happens within maybe, I don't know, 20 hours or 10 hours. That's horrible. I'm not neglecting the fact that this is terrible for the mother as well as for all the kids, but then we don't hear in the news one single mother was bringing up 3 kids for more than 25 years. So it's way more time being invested, way more effort, way more things. So that is actually something huge compared to a person doing such a terrible act in such a short moment. And we cannot compare them. Obviously, that is something horrible and should be acknowledged as something horrible. But this, I'm just giving this as an example to think about, why don't we recognize so much goodness that there is already? So, and then one thing, what we want to do is we want to recognize that we have this heartfelt wish. So this is what we're going to practice now. We first want to recognize what we already have. In each and every moment, we have this thought of wanting to be happy. Then second thing, we allow ourselves and recognize we deserve to be happy. Because I just had a conversation just before I came here with a friend who says, it's kind of funny, I know I suffer, but I also don't want to let go of it. I find comfort in it. And I don't really do the things that make me happy. And I know this for myself. I know sometimes, as you say, I know that meditation is great for me. But I sometimes don't allow myself to do the things that are good for me. So first we recognize I want to be happy. Second, we recognize that we deserve to actually be happy. And then, so you deserve to have this wish fulfilled. And then we recognize that is already, or this aspiration that you want to be, happy. You set the goal. You say, this is my goal to being happy. And then you send yourself love. You send yourself, may I actually have this happiness? So first we recognize, then we allow, oh, I'm deserving it. May I actually have it? Okay, so this is what we're going to try now to practice step by step. And then afterwards, we can expand it to everybody else around us, because we understand, well, if I have this 24 hours every day, also she's going to have it 24 hours every day. Also he's going to have it 24 hours every day. So then we can expand it. But in the beginning, we do it step by step. Okay. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Or is there any last question about that? Okay, good. So maybe you can use the sound of the bell to focus on that for a moment. You don't really have to think about meditation, you can just listen to sound. And then again, for maybe a minute or two, we can use the breath as a support for our meditation. So wherever it is most easy for you, in the whole body, the abdomen or the nostrils, just allow yourself to be aware of the knowing of the breath, your chosen position. And then you can start slowly scanning your body from the top to the bottom. And this time you can think, how amazing that I have those limbs, for example. Regardless how happy I am with my belly, how amazing that I have a belly. And that it carries all these organs. How kind, how amazing. I have arms, I have legs, how wonderful. And then you can maybe think how amazing and wonderful it is that I have people here in this room who support me. Or maybe other loved ones in your life. So you can just take some time to make it very personal and to see fortunate conditions that you might have. Allow yourself to actually rejoice in that and have some delight. And then you can also look at the qualities that exist within you. For example, up until now you didn't give up. Or maybe you gave somebody a smile today. It doesn't have to be something big, or you fed your pet. Just go through your day and look what kind of wonderful things you actually did. You brushed your teeth. Allow yourself to be happy about whatever kindness you've performed. And then allow yourself, with this kindness or with this sense of delight and joy and gratitude, allow it to enter your heart. Just for this moment, you're allowed to just focus on what's wonderful in you. And then you can think how wonderful would be if I would always have this feeling of joy. And you can actually recognize or start recognizing this wish within yourself of wanting to be happy. Just wanting to be happy, to be at peace. And see in whichever way it is expressed. In the end, it's just the wish to be happy. And then, with the recognition of this wish, allow yourself this heartfelt, open motivation of love in the way of using your language. You can either do it very silently, like a whisper, or you can just do it in your mind. You can think, may I have this happiness? May I have the causes of happiness? May I have happiness and the causes of happiness? And if you find it supported, you can also visualize that you fill yourself up with this wish in the form of white light, bright light, transforming into everything that you need to be happy. It can be external things as well as internal or mental qualities. So for this moment, just allow yourself to fully, unconditionally love yourself. May I have happiness and the causes of happiness. And then slowly you can let go of those thoughts process. And just for a few moments, just rest into being how you are at the moment. Just rest in awareness itself. Okie dokie. Do you have any questions on that or on anything that has been said before? Or is there anything that you want to express in your own experience? Did you feel nothing? And it was just like, okay, I'm just doing it. Because this is sometimes what happens. And I think often in the beginning, it's really just words. It can be just words and we don't get a feeling at all. And that's the norm. So if you have that, that's absolutely normal and that's absolutely fine. By time, in the beginning, we go through stages. In the beginning, we have just thoughts, just some intellectual understanding. Only then, slowly, if we continue doing it, familiarization, that becomes maybe some small experiences, and then some more stable experiences. And then from the stable experience, only then it goes into a realization, which then becomes like our second nature. So in the beginning, if there's just thoughts and it doesn't move you at all, that's completely fine. And if you have those moments, then that's also fine. Yeah. It's already past 9, so I don't want to say much anymore. In case there's anything that you have questions about or that you want to talk about. One thing that I want to give you again is like a little exercise or challenge for this week. So we're having this thought of may you be happy. And so this time I would like you to, maybe even when you go out now and drive home, maybe if you still meet 3 people, try to generate as the first thought that you have towards them, may you be happy. And in the other days, I wish you to, whenever you go out or whenever you meet somebody, the first 3 people that you meet, try to see if you can have as the first labeling thought on them, instead of, oh, they're attractive, or they're ugly, or they're tall, or they're small, or she has a beautiful dress. Instead of having all these thoughts, have as the first thought, and this is coming from Venerable Namgyal. He really likes it, and I really like it as a exercise for us. Go around as the first labeling thought that you're having is, may you be happy, or may you have happiness, or whatever words move you. So you use words that move you, that work for you. So that's one. And then the other one, try again. If it's not 5, then try one session of your time that works for you well, doing a meditation on loving kindness, and in this kind of manner, and doing a meditation also in your time that works for you. Let's say again 5 minutes, maybe 2, maybe more, of stabilizing meditation. Is this something which is reasonable, doable? Okay, even if it's not doable, also fine. Then you can try to do those in your daily life moments where you say, okay, for the next 30 seconds, I have awareness. Over the next 30 seconds, I recognize I want to be happy and I wish myself to be happy. Yeah, that's it. One thing that if anybody wants to leave now, you are free to leave. But we're going to have a dedication before, and afterwards I have one thing that actually maybe want to talk with Jeff about, and what you just said with the WhatsApp group. So I had one thought that came also in my mind. So we can talk about that after we dedicate it. And then for those who've never done dedications, we dedicate again so that we not trying to hold on to whatever we did well. So whatever we did well, we want to not only keep it for ourselves, but we want to offer it for everybody else also to have some benefit. And by doing that, we have even more benefit. But this is a side effect. So we want to use whatever great opportunities that we have that maybe others don't have, and whatever wonderful things that we've created here, to share with others. So let's open our hearts and try to share it with others, because they, as we just recognize, have exactly the same wish, and they also deserve it in exactly the same way as we do, but might not be so fortunate as us. And for that, I would like to use one that is on, oh wait, we can use actually the dedication players that are just here on page 50. And then later we're going to use also maybe Shanti, maybe it's a little bit late, we can use the dedication and prayer on page 50, the first two, and then we can see. Okay. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has not arisen increase more. Maybe also one thing when we do the dedications, if you have somebody who is really in your heart at the moment, who is struggling, or maybe also looking at the world situation, maybe we are really fortunate now here being in Switzerland, or me coming from Germany, we have amazing conditions. There are a lot of people who don't have that. So maybe we can also, every now and then also when you yourself in the next week, you can just send also them all this positivity that we maybe have, or the fortunate conditions that we maybe have, and all the practice that we did also towards those who are not as fortunate as we are. Yeah, that is it. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.